You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Just a mere few seconds ago, JD said, I have a recommendation for you on a show. And I reminded him that he's already on thin ice. Well, ironically, one of the headlines today is Chris Pratt hints that more episodes of the Terminal List are coming. And all I could think of when I saw that headline was, that's a threat, isn't it? That feels like a threat. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Wednesday, it's New Comic Book Day, it is September 21st, and we are chugging our way through this year like a freight train. I was going to say bullet train, but that's just a movie nowadays, so who knows. But yeah, this is the headline. It's over on, it's the latest headline from about, maybe a half hour ago over on Deadline. And Chris Pratt has good news for fans of the Terminal List who may be wondering about a second season. Okay. You have nothing to worry about, he said. There are more episodes on the way. He said this on a podcast by the Terminal List author, Jack Carr. So, yep. For both of you that like the Terminal List, you got more episodes coming. In other news, it has been announced that the Fantastic Four now has writers. So we got Matt Shakman coming on board as the director. We found that out at D23. Well, now Deadline is reporting exclusively that Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer are on board to write the script for the film. The writing duo actually has been involved in the Fantastic Four for some time, even before Shakman, and has been outlining what the next series of films will fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe alongside Kevin Feige. Kaplan, Springer, and Shakman now will come together to align their visions for the project before the writers dive deep into the script. Okay. So they've been involved beforehand. Just seeing, I'm not too familiar with the name. Jeff Kaplan sounds familiar. I don't remember Ian Springer. One of those high profile. They did the Disaster Wedding. The Disaster Wedding. I haven't even heard of that. All right. So there's your news, though. We got the Fantastic Four people coming. Hey, Ed, how you doing? They still write movies. I thought it was all grunts and special effects now. Most days what people think is that it's just storyboards. They just do the storyboards and the guys say whatever they want. And that's kind of how Taika Waititi works. They have a rough outline of what they're doing, and then they just make up the words as they go along. And we see how well that worked on Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm in a mood today. It appears I'm in a mood. Does it seem like it to you guys? So I think we need to talk about something positive. Something that I really, really liked. Are you guys familiar with Bloodshot? The comic book Bloodshot from Valiant. If you're not familiar, I brought Bloodshot Bear back on. Hello. This was my buddy that this was a New York Comic Con exclusive from Build-A-Bear a few years ago, and the PR guy at Valiant sent it to me at the time. So I've had him probably about 5 or 6 years now. But so we have Bloodshot Bear, and then there was also the Vin Diesel movie. Yeah, I'm kind of a Bloodshot fan. I'm a Valiant Comics fan. And we always talk about them on In Stores This Week. So we get the reviews from them. They send us the books. It's awesome. And they've had some really good books. And I'm not afraid to call out when they do something bad. The most recent Ninjak series, where Ninjak is my favorite character from Valiant, the artwork just didn't click for me. And it was the same for the other guys on the show. You've got this great super spy character and this almost underground comic feel art, and it didn't really work. On the other hand, Shadow Man, who's a character I never really got into that much, the stuff Colin Bunn has been doing on him, or with that storyline, and then and now in Shadow War, or the Book of Shadows, I think it's called. Awesome. It's great stuff. The Bloodshot movie came out. That was decent. The Bloodshot movie had some flaws, one of which is they cast Vin Diesel. And I appreciate that there are some big Vin Diesel fans out there. But there are two types of actors, in my opinion. There are stars and actors, or character actors. Basically, a star is somebody like John Wayne. You hire John Wayne and you put him in your movie to be John Wayne. It's pretty straightforward, and there's certain actors like that. The Rock. You hire The Rock to be The Rock. The range, maybe that much. There are other actors who have a much larger range, and you hire them to play a character. Well, they hired Vin Diesel, and Vin Diesel has the same thing. He's got Vin. He's the character from the Fast and the Furious movies and Triple X, and what was the one where he was in outer space? Pitch Black, I think it was. Yeah, thank you. And you hire Vin Diesel to be Vin Diesel. And that's great. It's like, Jason Statham. You don't hire Jason Statham to play Death of a Salesman. You hire him to kick ass and look cool doing it. Vin Diesel. So I think they could have done better by casting somebody with a little more range, because it's kind of a complicated character. But they didn't write it that complicated. So, you got what you got. I thought the action was decent. The effects were good. I thought it was ironic for a movie about a guy who kept having his memory erased, for them to cast the actor from Memento, which was all about the guy with short-term memory being erased over and over, or having his mind losing his short-term memory. They cast him as the bad guy. I expect JDB on the spot here. Get me the who was in Memento. Anyway, so I thought the movie was decent. It was watchable. The biggest problem was, though, it came out the weekend. Pablo drive-by. Hello, Pablo. It came out the weekend of the pandemic really started. So it just kind of came and went. Guy Pearce, thank you. So yeah, Guy Pearce is the bad guy. And overall, I thought it was a decent movie. It wasn't great level, but yeah. No, that's actually a different guy. That's the guy from Burn Notice is not Guy Pearce, but they do look similar. So, but yeah. So I thought the Bloodshot movie was pretty good. The comics have been pretty good overall. You can kind of describe the guy as the Punisher meets Frankenstein. It's a good pitch. He was created by Kevin Van Hook, Don Perlin, and Bob Layton back in 1992. So he's been around 30 years now. And they've done a lot of comics with him, a lot of different versions. They had a whole that he's a line of super. There's been multiple Bloodshots beforehand. There's a pretty decent backstory to it. But they just launched a new title today called Bloodshot Unleashed #1. Wait, really? Jason Statham played Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet. Wow. Asta with Dopplerati. Thanks for coming by, Pablo. Wow, Statham is Tybalt. That's gonna stick in my head for a while. Yeah. So this is Bloodshot #1, one of the covers. There's a bunch of covers, but Bloodshot Unleashed, excuse me. Now, his backstory is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna lift right from the comic. This is inside front cover. Infused with cutting-edge nanotechnology, Bloodshot was designed by his former masters at a private military contractor, Project Rising Spirit, to be an unstoppable killing machine. But after defying his programming and escaping his captors, Bloodshot now walks his own path. Pretty straightforward. I mean, pretty good concept right there. So basically, he's a super soldier that's been filled with nanites that give him strength, give him connection to like computers and stuff so he can get all his information. He's a super well-trained soldier. If he gets shot, they heal him. If he gets blown up, the nanites rebuild his body. But they need fuel, and so he has to eat meat. Red meat is what fuels the nanites. And so he's he's a pretty cool character. This, though, is their Valiant's first mature reader comic. And you pretty immediately see why. There's should be a trigger warning, which is a bad pun for a guy named Bloodshot. You get this really intense thing. If suicide really bugs you, be warned going into this comic. That said, and it threw me off a little too. So I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to like this series. By the end of it, I am absolutely in love with this series. They've come up with a concept, and it's not that outlandish of a concept, but it might be one of the strongest that I've seen in a while for an ongoing comic series. Because a lot of ongoing comic series, it's just, well, he's a superhero, so he fights. He just continues. He fights. He patrols the streets. That's why he's out there. And this has come up and goes, here's what he's doing. This is going to lay out for the next 2+ years of Bloodshot comics. And what they've done is Bloodshot basically is a super soldiers program, similar to Captain America. And we see it now in a lot of the MCU. We see a lot of characters that are descendants of that program. You know, the Hulk. In the MCU, the Hulk, Bruce Banner was working on something to be part of the Super Soldier program. The Weapon X program is supposed to be part of the project, Super Soldier project. Even Project Rebirth. Even the Man-Thing, who we're going to be introduced to next month. The Man-Thing was Ted Solis, the guy who becomes the Man-Thing, was working on a variation on the Super Soldier serum. So the idea of making a super soldier, that's huge. I mean, that's common now in comics, but with it comes the idea that multiple people are trying to do it. And so far in Valiant Comics, it's always just been Project Rising Spirit, their version, their Bloodshot program. Who at Valiant created Bloodshot? Shooter, Layton? It was Kevin Van Hook, Don Perlin, and Bob Layton are the three that are credited for it. He actually first appeared in, was it Exo? No, it was Eternal Warrior #4 as kind of a cameo. Then he appeared in Ray #0. And Ray and Bloodshot are somehow kind of connected. And then he got his own series. He's also been part of Unity and Hardcore. So, but yeah, Kevin Van Hook, who, by the way, Kevin Van Hook is an awesome guy. He came up and introduced himself to me at a convention one time. We've been, friends ever since. We talk online. He's currently over in, I want to say, South Asia, filming a movie. And if you follow him on Facebook, you can see all the stuff they're doing. But he does, I think he's special effects and stuff like that. But Kevin Van Hook is a really cool guy. But so this new conceit they're using, this new concept, it's from writer Dennis Camp, artist John Davis Hunt. Now, Davis Hunt had been working on Shadow Man with Colin Bunn, and now they moved him over here. And his artwork looks great on this book. All the colors by Jordi Belair. The letterer is Hassan Atzman Elau. And we got covers by John Davis Hunt. And then there's variants by Nicole Rifkin, Pete Woods, Gerardo Zaffino. And it's all edited by Rob Levin, who is still relatively new over there. He used to be with Top Cow years ago, was out for a while, and now he's back, and he's the editor over at, for at least for this book, over at Valiant. But the basic idea behind it, I don't want to give away too much, but we find out that this guy comes to him and says, you weren't the only super soldier. You weren't the only government agent created killing machine. And not all of them were as successful as you. Some of them are just insane. And we find out that there's 27 of these guys that were being kept in a secure facility until something happened and they all escaped. So 27 super soldiers that are basically pissed at the world are out there, and this guy basically puts the file in Bloodshot's hands and says, it's up to you now. And of course, we get to see the first encounter. The guy he's encountering has pretty unique abilities. I don't want to go into what those are. Again, I'll leave that for the story. But he refers to himself and the other soldiers that were locked away as spent shells. And I love that terminology. That just really clicked for me. So where the beginning was kind of dark, It is a really good introduction to the character of Bloodshot. So it gives you enough that if you've never seen the movie, you've never read a Bloodshot comic, you don't care at all about it, you're good. You can pick this up and just run with it. And the backstory on the character is, and again, from the movie, they mess with his mind all the time. They basically wipe his mind, and they implant these memories that he's doing all of this for his wife and his child. And then we find out later on that he doesn't have those. It's all implanted memories to give him a reason to fight. He gets his mind messed with constantly until he gets away. So that's kind of where the character is going into this, and he still has those memories. So he still misses his wife and child, even though he knows they don't exist. So it's a pretty intense opening, but then we get into a big action thing, and it's the setup for this new series. And again, the spent shells is such a great analogy for them. The art is really good. The first spent shell they go up against kind of feels like a Rob Liefeld character. In a way, it's like if you combine Rob Liefeld and Felix the Cat. That might be an odd comparison, but maybe if you gave Cable a bag of holding from D&D, you might be going where I'm going. And of course, episode 2, issue 2, I do that all the time. I saw comic books episodes and I call TV shows issues. The synopsis for issue 2 is Bloodshot's mission to put a stop to the spent shells. See, they're getting big on that. In America's heartland, takes him to Michigan to meet a wounded soldier whose brain was placed inside a robotic chassis with nuclear capabilities. No matter what happens, there's going to be a bloody fallout. So that's episode 2. Damn it. That's issue 2. So, like I said, this is already starting off great. And you've got a main character who can get shot at, blown to hell, and he still comes back. Because his body regenerates. The nanites regenerate him. And, I really like this issue. It was my favorite of the week, but it's probably my favorite of the month so far. Because it just really is a strong... I mean, I don't normally come on here and talk comics. I do the comic talk with Kyle and Jay. But I knew today that I wanted to bring this one up. Partly because Bloodshot is kind of getting a higher profile. Not only is that stuff, but they put out their first 6-scale figure. And it's supposed to be coming out in the next month or so. From, I think it's 3 Zeros, the company. And I ordered that. What's the title of the comic? Called Bloodshot Unleashed. JD, can you put the cover back up again, please? This is one of the covers. This is a pretty graphic cover too, but yeah. It's out today in the shops, and like I said, I absolutely loved it. And Kyle and Jay both loved it too. So it's rare the three of us agree on comics. So for all three of us to say, yeah, this was the best book of the week, it is. I mean, oh, cool, Ed. Glad to hear it. So, all right, let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we will talk about the Rings of Power. So we'll be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
Are you a comic creator? Are you a publisher? Do you make a comic book product? Do you own a retail store? Do you do something I haven't thought of? Who are you and what do you do? Let us know by advertising on The Experience and invite our viewers to patronize your product. Message the EXP on social media or email us the_EXP@yahoo.com for more details.
Hey everybody, I'm David Boer, the writer of Kanto, Killer Queens, and All New Firefly, and you are watching The Experience.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Got a little bit more news I just found that for one of probably one of my favorite series to debut this season that's outside of the comic genre, and that is Reacher over on Amazon Prime that stars Alan Ritchson, and it's written and showrun by Nick Santora, based on the novels by Lee Child. Now, you're probably familiar with the Jack Reacher character from the, if you haven't seen the series, from the Tom Cruise movies. But this one, Alan Ritchson, who, God, you might know him from, he plays Hawk on the Titan series on HBO Max. He was Aquaman in Smallville. He is this really big guy, which is great because Jack Reacher is supposed to be this huge ex-veteran military police officer or investigator who just got out of the service for the first time in his life. You know, he was raised by, his father was in the military. He was raised on military bases, immediately went into the service, became military police, and has been in there his whole life. Now he's out. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't, I mean, basically he just carries everything on him and travels around like a nomad because he's tired of, you know, the whole military thing. Book 2, or the second season is underway. It's going to actually adapt the 11th book in the series, where the first one did The Killing Time, which was the first book of the series. They're jumping to the 11th book called Bad Luck and Trouble. And it all sets off when Reacher's old military unit, you know, some of the people from the military unit start turning up dead. And of course, Reacher wants revenge because that's kind of what he does. But what's interesting is some of the people they've cast for the series. Now, Deadline says Serinda Swan is going to be in it. Now, if you're not familiar with her, she was on Smallville as well. She played Zatanna, but she played Medusa in the Inhuman series, and she's also on the TV series Coroner. And then Ferdinand Kingsley from Sandman is going to be in it. Rory Cochrane from Winning Time, which was another great show, the Lakers series, are both been added to the cast. Others that are going to be showing up in it, just scanning this real quick, see if anybody really jumps out. Sean Sipos is going to be in it. And Sean Sipos played Adam Strange on the Krypton series. And I think he and Wallace Day were probably the two highlights for me from that show. So that's pretty cool. Francis Nigley is back. Maria Sten, Al Sapinza from Coroner, Josh Blocker from C, Ty Victor Olson from Supernatural, Shannon Cook Chung from The 100, Andres Colantes, Two Sentence Horror Stories, Edson Morales from Black Summer. I mean, they're pulling a big cast out of this, but Reacher was a really good series. If you liked what the Terminal List should have been, but thought the Terminal List was, go check out Reacher. Reacher is a really good series. Like I said, it's on Amazon Prime. I binged it when it came out, and then immediately ended up watching it again with Lisa. So let's see. Hey, Lyle, how you doing? Good to see you. Let me scroll back a little here. I missed some stuff. Heather Woodruff Anderson, we're going to talk about Rings of Power. Okay, flashback to FF movie. Jeff Kaplan, Ian Springer are a winning team. Credits Bert and Arnie's Guide to Friendship, Last of the Great Romantics, and that's it. Okay. That's not a huge list of credits, is it? I mean, that's only one more credit than I have. So, but though I wrote an episode of TV and they wrote movies, but Bert and Arnie's Guide to Friendship. Egad. Okay. Oh, she really did good with that crap script they gave her. Yep. Okay. Let's talk Rings of Power, shall we? This was the 4th episode. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry I'm a little scattered today. All of my plans and stuff for the day were completely thrown off, not by anybody's purpose, but yeah. So I'm still kind of catching up. The episode was The Great Wave. It was the 4th episode. And normally I've been watching these on Sunday night, and then they're fresh in my mind. I watched this one back on Friday when it dropped because I thought, I want to see what's going on. The synopsis says Queen Regent Muriel's faith is tested. Isildur finds himself at a crossroads. Elrond uncovers a secret. Arondir is given an ultimatum, and Theo disobeys Bronwyn. That's pretty much the show. What we find out in this episode, and you can go ahead and put the spoiler thing up for anybody who may not have seen the episode yet. Yeah, I don't think we need the roll, but that's good. So, Queen Regent Muriel's faith is tested, and it is because she's been having visions, and the vision she's having has to do with the Plantier, and the Plantier is that crystal ball-like thing that they look into and see. Well, it's kind of a communication device. It's kind of a future-telling thing. We saw it in the original Lord of the Rings. Saruman had one, and Gandalf flipped out, goes, "Well, you don't know who's looking," and throws a cover back over it. That's a Plantier. And when Galadriel looks at it, she sees the same vision that Muriel had, which is this giant wave coming crashing over Numenor and destroying it. Now, in just a little backstory, Tolkien has said in his writings that for a long time he was having dreams of a giant wave crashing over the island, because England and Ireland and all that are islands basically, and he saw this giant wave crashing over. Now, if I was doing dream therapy, I would think that he was thinking about the Germans invading, and that was the Great Wave, but his, of course, manifest in a physical water wave, ocean wave. And that's what she sees, is this giant wave. And in the hit, Numenor was an island that was raised by the gods and given to the gods is not the right term, but what their gods are, raised by the gods and given to man in appreciation of them siding with the elves against Morgoth. So it's how it's how they said thank you, and it's where Numenor comes from. So she's been seeing this vision of the tree, the tree with the white leaves starting to shed its leaves, and then this giant wave coming and destroying. And that's why, and she sees as Galadriel as being the first step of that vision happening. Well, what we end up seeing is that they try to get rid of Galadriel, and as they're putting her on the ship and on a rowboat, taking her out to a ship to take her back to Middle Earth, the leaves start to fall. Now, Galadriel has made a lot of progress while she's been here. She's figured out, oh, hey, Triple B. She figured out that little symbol that Sauron is using is actually his plan to turn the Southlands into Mordor. Also, she figures out that Halbrand is likely the king of that area. So she tries to convince Muriel to side with them against Sauron. And Muriel's like, nope, you're out of here. Not happening. But as soon as the leaves start falling, as she's taking off, Muriel's like, bring her back, bring her back, bring her back. And they do. And Muriel decides to put an army together and to join Galadriel against Sauron. So that's that one big story going on. Now, while on Numenor, Isildur gets himself kicked out of the boat stuff, out of their navy. And in doing so, he is in place to join with the army being raised against Sauron. Now, this is important because he and his father are the ones who actually take on Sauron. Isildur is the one who takes his father's broken sword and slices the ring off of Sauron, and is the one that decides to keep it instead of throwing it into the fire. So that's Isildur. We're seeing a young version of him, but we know really big where he's going. And it says, I can't remember the historical part that well with Tolkien. Is that white tree what will one day be the white tree of Gondor? Yes. Isildur takes the seeds of that tree and puts it and plants it in Gondor. So that is the same tree. Well, it's the offshoot of that tree. And that tree is an offshoot of the trees that the elves worshipped. We see in the beginning that the trees of light, they don't glow anymore, but it's still those trees. So now, Isildur is getting himself involved, and his dad is. He's got a brother who we haven't met yet, but his sister is. There's a romance or something going on with his sister, but those are made up characters for the show. So it's not like we can look at them and go, "Oh, this is going to happen to her," and we don't know. And we really don't know what some of the stuff's going to happen. We just know certain characters endpoints. So yeah, we got that going on. Now we move over to Khazad-dûm, which may be one of my favorite things to say in this whole show. Khazad-dûm is a great title. If I ever open a bar, I think I might just name it Khazad-dûm, just because it just sounds cool. But over in Khazad-dûm, we see Elrond is starting to sense that something is up. Now, the dwarves are already helping. Yeah, it's a good battle cry. They're already helping the elves build the furnace for Celebrimbor, which is another great name, by the way. It sounds like a new medication. Ask your doctor if Celebrimbor is right for you. Well, so they're building the furnace, but Elrond still sees that something is going weird. Yeah, that's what I'm getting to, Ed. The mithril part with Elrond helped confirm we'll most likely see a Balrog. It'll be interesting to see what the streaming version of the Balrog will look like. Yeah, because that's we know that's the fate of Khazad-dûm, is that they started mining for mithril, they went too deep, and they awoke in a Balrog, and the Balrog came up. Now, we know that a Balrog is supposed to be in the series at some point. So it's likely going to be that Balrog that Gandalf does the, "You shall not pass." So there's a good chance that whoever goes up against isn't going to live, and Khazad-dûm is going to get destroyed by the end of whatever number of seasons is. So yeah, but definitely expect a Balrog. And that's what they're mining is mithril. And they've been trying to keep it a secret because they expect it to be incredibly valuable because it's lightweight but sturdy as steel. They think it's going to be more valuable than gold. And we've seen what it can do. Frodo ends up first. Bilbo gets this chainmail shirt, but it's mithril chainmail, and then he passes it on to Frodo. So yeah, mithril is important. But when Elrond confronts him and finds out what it is, there is a stone of mithril, this chunk of mithril that he lets Elrond keep. Now, a lot of people are thinking maybe they used that piece of mithril to make Nenya. Nenya. Nenya is one of the rings of power. It's the one that Galadriel ends up with, and it's the one made of mithril. So the fact that Elrond is involved with Celebrimbor and the furnace they're making is going to be the one that makes the rings, there's a chance that that amount of that mithril that he was just given will end up being the one that Celebrimbor uses to make Nenya. So I thought that was kind of a neat little moment there too. But he finally gets Durin to tell him what's going on. And Durin was worried, well, this is why you're here. This is what the info you're wanting. He goes, I promise you, it's nothing to do with us. I don't even know what you're talking about. And yes, it's this old mine that Durin's father, Durin this third, the prince is Durin the fourth, his father is Durin the third. And the way the dwarfs believe is that each Durin is a reincarnation of the previous one. So I believe they think Durin the fourth, either Durin the third is a reincarnation of Durin the first, or maybe it's Durin the fourth is. But yeah, it's supposed to be the reincarnation. But they like to name their princes and kings Durin. But Durin the fourth and has a fight with his father because there's a cave-in. And luckily, Elrond was talking to Durin at the time, or Durin would have been in the cave. Instead, Durin the Fourth was able to lead the rescue and his wife, what's the wife's name? Diva? Da, 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 da. All right. Well, Durin's wife leads the singers to help shift the stones and stuff to get them out. So because they're stone talkers, basically. They sing to the stones. And what's neat is when you watch it, you see some of the stones moving similar to the opening sequence where all those shapes are made. And they did that with sound. So it's basically pebbles on a speaker and they get to shift around. So it kind of is the opening is a mimic of the stone speakers. So I thought that was pretty neat as well. But they are able to get all the dwarfs out. Disa, that's it. That's why I thought it was Diva. Disa. And Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth have an argument, but Elrond convinces Durin to kind of make peace with his father. In a unique way, we get to hear about Elrond's father. And Elrond's father is, because he was the one that went to Valinor first, and he sided with the elves and stuff. The Ilinar, is that what they're called? I always forget that, the name of their gods, but basically raised him up to being a star, and he travels across the night sky all the time. Elune, the light of Elune. Too many names. Now I'm getting Warcraft mixed into it too. But there's a part in Lord of the Rings that Galadriel gives Frodo the light of, I want to say the light of Elune, but it's something different. But this little glass vial of light. And that is a representation of Elrond's father, who got turned into a star, which supposed to be real. And we get a hint of that in the previous episode with the Harfoots, when they're trying to figure out the stranger who fell like a star, and Saffron says, well, there's writings about people being turned into stars, but never stars becoming people. Well, people becoming stars is Elrond's father, and that's a lot to live up to. What did your dad do? Well, he became a star. Literally. Yeah, that would be it's hard to follow in your father's footsteps at that point. So that's what's going on with the dwarfs. We don't revisit the Harfoots in this. What? Yes, that's it. Light of Arendelle. The Light of Arendille's star. The names on this. There are people, I swear, that just knows this stuff. Tolkien lore people that it's amazing how well they know these books. I'm a novice with this. A lot of this is new to me, or I pick up as we go. But yeah, there are some amazing people out there that just can rattle this stuff off without even looking it up. And then of course we never visit the Harfoots again in this one, which I thought was interesting, because you would think we would there's 4 groups that we're following, but we don't. It's like, oh, we're going to skip this one this time. The third episode, we skipped the dwarfs. Okay. Well, the other group we follow in this time, it starts with Arondir, the elf who's captured by the orcs, and Adar, who is Adar in Orcish, I guess his father is what they're saying. And he's this corrupted elf who is creating the orcs. Now, are they actually? Yes, Stephen Colbert is one of those guys. I wasn't sure if I was going to watch this series until it got the Stephen Colbert seal of approval, and then I was in. So, But Adar talks to Arondir, and we do learn that not only is he a former elf, but he came from the same area Arondir came from. And he ends up letting Arondir go to the tower and tell the humans, give an offer to the humans. Now, the humans have all collected in the watchtower. We got to see the watchtower early on. That's where Arondir went to talk to the other elves who are now all dead in the pit. And the humans have all gone there, and they're hiding out there in kind of a Helm's Deep type setup. But they're running out of food. They're running out of shelter, or they're running out of food. More and more people are coming there. So they're hunting in the hills, and Theo suggests, let's go back to the village, and during the day, get all the food and come back. And they're like, no, we're going to hunt in the hills. And they found like one rabbit. So, but Theo, of course, blows off. Bronwyn doesn't listen to her. He and a buddy go back to the village. They get a whole little cart full of stuff. They start heading back. And he goes, well, I'm going to hit the pub and see what I can get out of there. And his buddy's like, I'm going back. I got a cart. We're good. We got food. We're moving. And Theo's like, I'm going in. And he goes in, and of course, an orc attacks him. And he uses his own blood to extend the sword of Sauron and try to fight him. And he ends up getting, the other orcs show up, and he ends up hiding in a well, and it gets dark, and all this bad stuff is happening to him. And he's trying to get out of there, and Arondir comes to his rescue. And, of course, I don't understand why the orcs went, okay, we're going to send this guy off to the tower with a message. And we're going to give him his bow and arrow. Why would you give him his weapons? That seemed like a bad idea to me. But they give him his weapons, and they fight their way out of it, and they're running through the trees and the forest and stuff, and they break through the other side, and there's sunlight, and his mom is there, and so we get this final battle, and he goes very Legolas, just like turning and firing and catching an arrow out of the air and firing it back. But when he gets there, we get two interesting bits of information. We find out that the message that Adar wanted to send was basically that if the humans surrender and swear loyalty, they'll be allowed to live, which I don't think is going to happen. And then we also find out that I think it was the barkeep or one of the guys from the pub was the previous owner of the sword. And you see the same mark on his arm that Theo now has. And he's a follower of Sauron. And he's talking about how, Sauron's coming back. The fire in the sky, or the shooting star, was a sign. He's coming back. We've got to be ready. And he's talking to Theo like, well, you're now one of us. You're now a follower of Sauron because you're tainted, which is not a good sign for poor Theo. So now I know some people are thinking, well, does he become a ring wraith? Is that what happens to Theo? Some people still think that Halbrand is going to become a ring wraith. Some people think Halbrand might be Sauron. Some people thought Adar was going to be Sauron, but I think not. I think Halbrand is a little too obvious of a Sauron at this point, but who knows? We may not even have met Sauron yet. This is going to be, I think the deal that they made, they have to do like 5 seasons of it. It's part of the deal that they agreed to with the Tolkien family. So there's a lot to come. We're not going to wrap up. It's not at the end of 8 episodes or whatever it is, or 10 episodes, where we go, oh, it all makes sense now. We're just getting the first part of it. When this is all done, it's going to be bigger than the other, the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies. Oh, my video is locked up and my voice is still going. Okay, good to know. I'll keep talking and hopefully the video will straighten out. Anybody else having that problem? JD, is that me or is that him? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to be wrapping up in a minute anyway. But yeah, so we had some interesting news today. Reacher's coming back. Great. Really good episode of Ring of Power. We had a really good episode of She-Hulk last week. Andor has dropped. If you haven't watched it yet, we are going to talk Andor tomorrow. There are 3 episodes that dropped. Now, I've had a chance to watch the first one, and I will tell you now, where everybody out there is saying Andor is great so far, they're all saying it after watching all 3 episodes. The first episode, which is interesting, that it's a lot of setup and it's kind of slow. So keep that in mind. Don't judge off of the first episode, seems to be the words here, or what to take from this. Oh, good question. Yeah, Ed, I guess asking to 3 to talk about tomorrow. Let's go ahead and just do the first. We'll plan for the first 2. We'll do the first 2, and then we can carry 3 over with 4 for the following week. So I'll try to keep everything down to 2. And if it turns out everybody's seen all 3, great. If you guys have only seen the first one, then I'll try to keep it restricted. But we'll at least begin our conversation on Andor tomorrow. So, yeah. And they're not full hour episodes. The first one looked to be about 35 to 40 minutes. So keep that in mind. I think all 3 episodes clock in about an hour 40 total. So it's not too bad. So, all right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Andor. Stick around for Comics Collectibles with Rex and John and AR Comics. They're going to have some cool books today, including books signed by Matt Fraction, Mark Waid, James Tinian IV, some other cool stuff. So stick around for that. All right, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.